Welcome back to the Irish Bandit channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I, as always, am your host, the one, the only, the second Irish Bandit. We are continuing on with my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Today we are looking at movie number 3 on my list. Now this is a little bit of an anomaly. It's such a fun word to say. Because this is the sequel to the movie that's coming in at number 2 on my list. So once I tell you what this movie is, you're going to know what the second movie, my second all-time favorite movie is, but we're going to get right down to it because I felt that this movie was not as good, but still just as good as the original. And there are a lot of people who say, oh, this movie sucks. I don't feel that way. And these are people who are apparently fans of the first movie, because if you're saying that this movie sucks, you're basically saying the first movie sucks, in my opinion. You know, I may be wrong, but that's totally my opinion. Coming in at number 3 is just a fun, brainless action movie that I still very much enjoy, including the original, but we'll talk about that on Tuesday. We're talking about its sequel, Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day. Boondock Saints 2 was released in October of 2009, 10 years, well, almost 10 years after the first movie. It was written and directed by Troy Duffy, who also wrote and directed the first movie. Was produced by the late Chris Brinker and Don Carmody. Carmody, sorry. Don't know what I'm saying here. And has just an amazing all-star cast, including Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus returning from the first movie, Clifton Collins Jr., Julie Benz, Judd Nelson, Bob Marley, not that Bob Marley, he's been dead, but an amazing Boston comedian named Bob Marley, Peter Fonda, and the great Billy Connolly, great comedian, Scottish comedian. Cinematography by Miroslav Bazak, and music by Jeff Dana, who returned from the original movie. It was produced by Stage 6 Films and distributed by Apparition. And it cost $8 million to make. It had a huge budget, much more than the first movie, and only pulled in $10.6 million, but it had a limited run in the theaters, much like the original movie. Now, I'm not going to get into too many details about this movie because a lot of it is continuation from the original movie. But what I will say is that this picks up 8 years after the events of the original movie. The McManus brothers, Connor and Murphy, played by Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus, have returned to Boston after being framed for a crime that they did not commit. Obviously, because they were in Ireland at the time that the crime was committed. And what sets forth is a plot of revenge towards the Saints, as they're called, by a family member of one of their victims in the original movie. And like I said, this movie and the original are just... There's a charm about these movies that I absolutely adore, and we'll talk about that, talk about the things that I loved about this movie. So one of the things that I absolutely loved was the returning chemistry from Norman Reedus and Sean Patrick Flannery. They just played off of each other so well, much like in the first movie. You can add Billy Connolly into that too. He was, I'm not going to get into too much about this movie until we talk about the first one. Again, going to be on Tuesday. But just the chemistry between the three of them is just palpable, and you can just feel it. It comes off the screen. And then you throw in everybody else who's in this movie, like Julie Benz, her being in the movie, this being her first time being in the Boondock Saints franchise. Clifton Collins Jr. I thought was a great addition to the cast. When I heard about the character of Romeo, who he plays in the movie, I thought it would be a replacement for the character of Rocco, played by David Della Rocco, who was also in this movie as well. I was completely wrong. I did not feel that Romeo was a replacement for Rocco. I thought he brought his own thing to this movie, and it made me, I don't want to say appreciate, because I already like Clifton Collins Jr. as an actor, but it made me just take notice of him. And then after that, he's been in such great movies like Jarhead. He was in Crank 2. He's got a whole bunch of stuff coming out. He's even an author as well. Great presence on Twitter as well. If you're not following him, you really should. He's not for everybody, but I definitely dig what he has to say. But that's, how I feel personally. And then the rest of the cast is just so well done. You have returning favorites like the characters of Detective Greenlee, Detective Della Papaskalius, and Detective Duffy. I think he was named after director and writer Troy Duffy, but that's a little under my cap thing. And those three, again, just work so well off of each other. You see the chemistry between the actors. One little fun tidbit about this movie and the original one that I will talk about is that there is an Irish bartender played by the late, great Jerry Parks. He's just this great, wonderful bartender. It's so funny because in the movie he has Tourette's syndrome. So he's always shouting obscenities, just out of the blue, popping them off one at a time. Even in this one, they make a fun game about it. Of course, I try to keep things family friendly on the channel, so I won't retell it. But if you've seen Boondock Saints 2, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The reason why I bring this up is because the character that Jerry Parks plays, his name is Doc. Now, when I've watched the original Boondock Saints movie, I was looking at this character of Doc and I was like, why does he look so familiar? Why does he look like Doc from Jerry Parks, who played Doc in Boondock Saints and Boondock Saints 2, played Doc on Fraggle Rock. Yes, that is 100% true, and I think it's kind of funny how someone from my favorite TV show as a kid came on to one of my favorite movies as an adult. So that's kind of a generational thing that I kind of really enjoy. But as much as I love this movie, it does, and the original one does as well, it does have its faults, and we'll talk about the faults of Boondock Saints 2 now. So like I said, Boondock Saints 2 does have its faults. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a perfect movie. And you won't hear me say that about the original movie either. But let's talk about the second movie. Now, one of the big faults in this movie is its direction. Now, I'm not going to sit here and slam Troy Duffy because this is really only his second or third movie that he's directed. I think maybe second behind the original Boondock Saints. So he doesn't have the experience of, say, like a Kevin Smith, Tim Burton, anybody like that, any of my other favorite directors. But he brings a rawness and a realness to his movies and his scripts. And that's another kind of downfall, is the writing of the movie. I think it kind of lacks in certain parts, but I mean, with the talent of the actors, it more than makes up for it. Not so much a nitpick or something I didn't like about it. There was a grittiness to this movie, and even to the first one as well. But whereas the grit in the first movie was more palpable, this one kind of had this is a fault of the movie because it does have the bigger budget, so it kind of has a shinier veneer. And I know it sounds like I'm spouting off all these terms like I think I know what the hell I'm talking about. I actually kind of do, but not to brag or anything. But there's like a Hollywood grittiness to it, whereas the first movie had that grit factor that I really enjoyed in the first movie. Maybe that's why this movie comes in at number 3 as opposed to higher than the original. They say it's very rare for the sequel to be better than the original. Like, honestly and truthfully, some sequels that are better than the original. The Godfather. In my opinion, Rocky 2 was a much better movie than Rocky, and I felt Rocky was a fantastic movie. Those are really two great examples of movies that are better, the sequels that are better than their movies. It took like one other movie beforehand, but I think Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was a superior movie to Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I don't know if it was better than Nightmare on Elm Street, but I think Nightmare on Elm Street, for the sequels, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was fantastic, but that's a little side tangent on my part. Boondock Saints 2 was a great follow-up to a great movie, and Troy Duffy has been teasing a third movie for a couple of years now. Now, Boondock Saints 2 came out in 2009. Sean Patrick Flanery and Norman Reedus turned about 42, 43, 42, 43, and around there at the time. When they made the original movie, they were in their 30s. They're in their 50s now. I don't know how much left Sean and Norman have left in them, honestly and truthfully, to do this. If they're willing to, then God bless them. You know, they're going to have, if the other two movies are anything to go by, they're going to have fun. So we'll see what happens if there will be a third movie. There's also been a TV series pitched as well, but I saw how Troy Duffy was pitching the TV series, and I can't get behind that. But the movies, on the other hand, the movies are great. I thought Boondock Saints 2 was a great follow-up to the original movie, and if you love the movie, I think you're going to love the sequel. Now, like I said before, a lot of people who said that they loved the original movie hated this one, and I don't know why. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the exact same movie, but, you know, you get the same things you get in the original movie as well. So, personally, myself, I thought All Saints Day was a great follow-up to a great, great movie. But what did you think of Boondock Saints 2? Let me know in the comments section down below. I'd really love to hear. While you're down there, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. In the description, you're going to see a link to all of my social media, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, my Redbubble store. We can pick up all your Irish Bandit merchandise. Whatever you want is in the Irish Bandit shop. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you're already subscribed, tap the bell and you'll be notified whenever a brand new video goes live. So if I already said that the sequel is number 3 and the original movie is number 2, you automatically know what my next video is going to be about. It's going to be about the original Boondock Saints movie. We're going to talk about that on Tuesday. And then next Thursday, we're going to talk about my all-time favorite movie. And it's going to be a little bit of a change from these past 2 entries. And then coming up very, very soon, I have an announcement for a new video series that I am working on. It's going to be a monthly long-form video series. I'm going to get all into that in a future date and time, and then some great ideas coming down the pike very, very soon. But we'll get into that next Thursday. So until then, guys, take care, and I'll talk to you again very, very soon.